Rolling. Monster Shop.
It's gone wild.
It's gone wild. I need to tell you about, before we do anything.
Yeah.
When you said we're going to do this album.
Yeah.
I think you said it like during last week's show, actually.
Did I? I don't know.
I can't remember.
It's one I've wanted to do for ages.
Yeah, but you said like we're going to do that, and then I looked through it. I went, oh, it's the one with Youth Gone Wild on it.
Yeah.
And I was listening through the album, and Youth Gone Wild came on, and I just had this wonderful realization that I was lying in bed and my back was slightly hurting because I'd been doing the garden, and I'd hurt my back a bit, my lower back.
Yeah.
And I was complaining to my wife that I'd hurt my back, and she said, "What are you listening to?" And I went, "Oh, it's Youth Gone Wild," and she just smiled.
That's pretty brutal, actually. That's pretty brutal, isn't it?
Yeah. They know how to get you, don't they?
Yeah. It's when you have the pain and you've not done anything. I think as long as you can attribute it. I moved a plant the other weekend, last weekend, I think. And when I say a plant, it was a big old. It was like a big old tree, like the size of a house, probably, or something. Anyway, I did it and I moved it, and I was really, really pleased with myself. And the next morning when I came to go down the stairs, all of my hamstrings and my back, and
that's the one, isn't it?
And I'm just like, what?
You don't think about them when you're a child, do you? Hamstrings?
No, Youth Gone Wild. But yeah, I'm with you on that. It's gardening's much harder.
Yeah.
Than it should be. I think gardening you should all be like the Clarkson style gardening.
Yeah.
When he's got JCBs and things. Well, you JCB to me if you plant. So have you had a good week anyway? What have you been doing?
I've been.
It's been a bit rain. It's been rubbish weather.
I didn't do anything for a bit. Nice. I had a good week of nothing, and then everything all at once. So it was that kind of
That's
week.
That's full on ADHD, isn't it? That's kind of like no, not doing anything. No. Let's paint the house. Like all of the house in the afternoon.
But no, we did the garden. Kelly came round.
Oh, did he?
And Kelly, he came round, and we did some gardening together.
Nice.
And we went over to the allotment. God, this sounds really boring.
This is brilliant.
Youth
This
Gone Wild,
is it. This is
Youth Gone Wild.
Yeah.
And then. And that was it, really. Lots of telly, actually. What about you?
I can't remember. It's been difficult because all I remember this week is that my boss has been off, and we've got people out on various forms of leave, which I've just been doing email, like all of it, all of the email. I'm writing. There's a document, and this is going to sound even as just more boring than the gardening. I had to get a report written.
Yeah.
And every time I started to do it, something would happen, some drama would happen, and then I would have to go and listen.
Yeah.
Oh, just so it's been a bit like that this week, really. Yeah. I have been out on my bike.
Oh, good.
Which was nice. So I feel obviously my bum hurts. Yeah, because I've sat on my bike seat for a bit. But yeah, no, it's been good. But I do want to cycle back.
I hurt my finger.
Have you? Oh yeah, you have hurt your finger.
That.
How did you do that?
Guitar.
Oh, plectrum. I wanted to bring back the concept of kind of being like let's call it late middle age, middle. I don't know where we are in middle ages now, but kind of 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
And this album.
Yeah.
Because when I discovered this album, I was 15, and I was Youth Gone Wild. I didn't have any parents really, and this album totally spoke to me in a way that only things do when you're 15.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. Absolutely just loved this record. I loved the kind of that kind of punk anger and vitriolic kind of just bombasticness to it. I just loved it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. But I saw them on their recent tour with one of their recent singers. They've had quite a few. And no, it was Eric Gronwall.
Right.
Who was great, actually. Really, really great. But it was brilliant seeing 40 and 50-year-old men screaming to Youth Gone Wild. And it was just phenomenal. It was just one of those, it kind of like the irony of it. The band singing it, you know, the band in their 50s singing Youth Gone Wild. And it was great. They were brilliant live. Eric was great as a vocalist. I think the band need a really great vocalist to work, but yeah, it was phenomenal. That whole, I mean, I still sing to these songs in the car, but it kind of, and it's weird sometimes. You know, people say, "Oh, well, it takes me back to that time when I was 15."
Yeah.
I don't know. It kind of doesn't to me. It just makes me feel happy.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You know,
it?
It's music that makes me, right from the very first bars of this album, the pick squeal. There's pick squeals like every 5 seconds in this record. Dave the Snake Sabo,
right?
Because that's it. All amazing guitarists need a middle name.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But there's just the squealing in it and the vocals, and it's just everything about this record is just, it's over the top.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, everything's kind of up to 11.
But they could all play. They could all do what they needed to do. You know. I mean, Seb Bachs was just phenomenal, wasn't he? What a range, what a vocalist.
Yeah, he was. And there's an interesting story because the band, we'll talk a little bit about where it came from. It's probably a good time to do it. But, I think it was Dave Sabo knew
the Snake.
Dave the Snake, sorry, Sabo. Yeah, he went to school with John Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
And they made a pact at school.
Yeah.
They both were going to be famous rock stars, well, when they were 12 or whatever. And then they were like, whichever one of us makes it will help the other one.
Yeah.
And obviously Bon Jovi, and there's no chance of us getting through this new podcast format without covering New Jersey, Slippery When Wet. Something from that era's got to come through. Yeah. But they were massive.
New Jersey, I reckon. Yeah,
I love New Jersey.
Yeah.
So they were massive, and they took Skid Row on tour with them with a different vocalist.
Really?
Always.
So he wasn't in it. So he wasn't in it at the beginning.
No, he wasn't. Hang on. I'm looking at my notes. So the original vocalist was a guy called Matt Fallon. So Skid Row played the support slot on the New Jersey tour.
Okay, yeah.
Now, Bon Jovi's manager was a guy called Doc McGee.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, Doc McGee and John Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
They all kind of got together and went to see Skid Row in the, after the gig and said, band's great, love everything about it, love kind of the songs and everything. You sack your singer.
Wow.
And they'd both seen, so Doc McGee and JBJ had seen Seb Bachs playing in another band and said,
"Gotcha,
this might be your dude."
Yeah.
So then they did the same thing. They sent a tape off to Seb, who listened to it, loved it, and
oh gosh. So you sent me a YouTube video.
Yeah,
that makes loads of sense now.
So we're going to play a clip from that now. This is one of the really early interviews of Seb talking about kind of the band getting together and kind of how all that happened. But it's fascinating. This is a really early video of Seb before the ego has landed. Right, so he's kind of well, I don't know. It is probably about the time. This is a really interesting clip. We're going to play 2 clips from this. The first clip is where he talks about kind of how that happened and getting the tape. The second clip is where he's just come out of prison.
I was getting a lot of offers to join American bands at the time, but I was just really happy, so I didn't want to. And Skid Row sent me a tape, and I'm going, man, I hope this really sucks, because I don't want to leave doing this, right? Put it in, and I heard Youth Gone Wild, and I go, damn it, it's great! Jesus! Now I got to make a decision, But the more I listened to it, I said, man, that is some serious music.
So that was Seb talking about doing beer commercials and getting a tape from Rachel and the guys at Skid Row and loving the music. I kind of love, and you mentioned this when we were chatting, I love the naivety.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Yeah,
he wasn't very old, but it was phenomenal. Really, just
they were kids.
Yeah.
We can quite easily look at them with our adult eyes now, but like John Bon Jovi and all that lot, all those guys, they were all just kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's hard to. I don't know. It's kind of hard to put yourself in their shoes, really, because at this point in the world, this was late 80s, mid to late 80s.
Yeah,
rock and metal, especially hair metal at the time, was the biggest thing on the planet. I mean, in my list here, I started to take a look at how many other bands around at the same time and how many album sales they were doing. So you had Guns N' Roses that were around, Motley Crue, Poison, Bon Jovi and Cinderella. Guns N' Roses, 30 million album sales.
unbelievable.
Bon Jovi, 18 million album sales in that year. Poison, 8 million. Motley Crue, 6. Skid Row, 5. And Cinderella, 3. You know, as a kid, if you're responsible for selling that many album sales, you know, that was back in the day when you had to physically buy the thing.
Yes, yeah, of course.
Record companies made a ton of cash
from
that. And then the touring as well. And the touring is what got them in trouble. So they did the recording, and I think we'll like we normally do. We'll come back and have a bit of a chat about that because it was produced by Michael Wagner.
Yes,
who is, I mean, he's kind of a who's who of kind of hair metal at the time.
Yeah.
So they recorded the album. I think Rachel and Snake knew that it was a big record. I think they kind of knew what they'd got. I don't think Seb did.
Yeah, he'd just come off a beer commercial. He got a gig singing with his band that he likes. They like their songs.
Exactly. Now, and again, it's worth remembering as well here that Seb didn't write any of the lyrics or any of the songs. He just was wheeled in. The songs already existed, but in radically different formats. So Seb came in and reworked where the high bits of the songs were going to be and where kind of so his voice was so different to Matt Fallon's. He was changing where not the lyrics, but changing where the lyrics were in the song, and their songs were kind of then built a little bit around that. But this would come back to break the band essentially, but he was not getting any credit for that. Kind of Rachel and the rest of the band were just like, sorry.
Yeah, there's no songwriting credits in this. This is you perform your vocals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I actually printed out this. Right. So the writers for all of this, it was Dave and Rachel. So Big Guns, Dave and Rachel. Sweet Little Sister, Dave and Rachel. Can't Stand the Heartache was Rachel. Piece of Me was Rachel. Everything else was Dave and Rachel. Making a Mess has a tag for Sebastian Bachs, one bit on there, and that was back in the days where if you didn't write the song, you didn't get any money.
No, absolutely.
So he would have got some money for what was happening, but all the cash for that album was going to Dave and Rachel.
Yeah.
But they went out on tour after that, and this is where the wheels started to come off. I think in that Seb's quite lively. Yeah, and I think the rest of the band are much less lively.
Yeah, they like their Lady Greys.
They do, yeah. They would be chilling, they're just in the back, pig squealing, slurping some Earl Grey.
Yeah.
And, whereas Seb would be just like, I don't know, just off his face somewhere going mental. Struggled with alcoholism, I think, but I think I don't think it's an addiction thing for Seb. I think he just is a live wire. I think he's just full of energy, and at this point in his life was probably quite naive. So anyway, they go out on tour.
Yeah.
and a few things happened, right? One of the first things, and I remember reading about this so it might have been Kerrang. It would have been one of those magazines that I used to get every week. And there was a big picture of Seb on the front page with blood all down his face. And I'll try and find the cover of this because I will put it on the Facebook. But somebody had thrown a bottle.
Oh, is that what it was?
At him on stage. And then what he did was pick the bottle up and throw it back. Missed the guy who threw it at him and knocked 7 bells out of a girl that was in the audience. And then, because he was well-rounded, decided he was going to go feet first into the crowd because he'd missed the guy. Yeah. He was going to go in and smack. And Seb's a big guy. I mean, he looks, he's quite pretty and he's long blonde hair, but he's a big old lad, and he jumped in there and he knocked 7 bells out of this guy and ended up going to jail.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
So he got in quite a lot of trouble. So we're going to play a little clip of this where he talks about he talks about that, and it still kind of hits me to this. He's still just like, yeah, cool.
He's a kid who's got in a fight.
Yeah, exactly.
In his mind.
It's it's just phenomenal. But let's hear from him because it's he's just as he was talking about going into jail.
Yeah, well, when you go to jail, it makes you think.
Yeah.
And I said, all this, like, that was just an emotional reaction at the time, because at the time I didn't have any distinction between playing an arena and playing CBGBs.
Yeah.
And if I was playing CBGBs and I did that, Kurt Loder wouldn't have been talking about it on MTV, because it didn't matter. But if you can't do that. You can't jump in there and kick somebody's ass, I'm not going to do it again.
No.
If it happens again, I'll just walk off the stage. I mean, I'm on probation right now for physical assault, and if I punch, one more person, that's it. No more Skid Row,
So I mean, we're back to the point you made earlier about the naivety.
Yeah.
But it was just young. He's a young kid from nowhere, right?
Yeah.
Just suddenly thrown into the limelight.
I think on that same video clip, he talks about going to Detroit for a bit and Toronto for a bit.
Yeah.
Just kind of milling about, doing jobs, singing on stuff,
and he talks in there about that difference between being in an arena tour supporting Bon Jovi and being at CBGB's.
Yeah.
And it's as if it's that. Oh, there's a difference.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think we would look back at it and kind of go, well, of course there's a difference.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's that. And we're going to play another clip now as well because he got in even more trouble. He got in a lot of trouble, did Seb, throughout his career. But there's another clip from the same interview where he wears this anti-gay T-shirt that someone throws to him on the stage. And then later on, he wears it. Now he wears it for a shoot, a band shoot. So there's pictures of him wearing it, and then he wears it on the stage. And the backlash was enormous, absolutely.
Right.
Even back in, obviously it was a different world back in the 80s, right? I think it's important to remember that, it was a radically different. But what was acceptable then is just, wouldn't have been in the 90s or the 2000s. It certainly isn't now. But it was a different culture, and we were in a different path. But the backlash against that T-shirt was phenomenal. And again, in this clip, you kind of hear that naivety of I didn't know it was going to cause a problem. I thought it was a funny joke. I thought it was silly. Is what you're hearing. I think, but it's quite cool to hear him say it, I think.
You show up in a photo wearing a shirt that says AIDS kills fags dead.
Right. Well,
surely there's a story there.
I mean, this is it won't seem, you won't believe this probably, but at the time, I swear, I did not know that anybody gave a flying whatever what it said on my chest. You know what I mean? That was like the introduction into responsibility for me.
Yeah.
And actually, it really hit home because one of my friends is a homosexual in New York, and a really, really good friend.
Yeah.
And he just let me know exactly what it meant to him, that shirt, and I felt like Fred Flintstone in Mr. Slade's office. Shaking down in the chair.
What, did he call you up and explain that?
No, he got me backstage, and he was mad. And he had every right to be because a lot of his friends died, and that's not cool making fun of that.
So that was young Sebastian Bach.
How old do you think he was then? Because he's got to be maybe late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
He looks it. He's got that youthful look. He certainly wouldn't get a backache doing the garden. He looks about that age. That age where you can do gardening without having to think, I better not. I'll have the ibuprofen now. I don't think he was thinking that.
Oh dear.
He was a very good-looking man as well.
Yes.
I remember seeing them live at Birmingham at the NEC, as it was called then. No sponsorship. It wasn't like somebody's, I don't know, like Doritos.
Doritos Arena.
The Doritos Arena or whatever they're called now. It was just called the NEC. And it took like 17 hours to get in. And there were no toilets. But anyway, I went there with some friends from school. And it was just, honestly, it was the bus. We got on this bus and we went from where we were to the where you go into the arena. And honestly, it was like 2/3 girls. And they were just squealing. This guy got onto the bus because there was like a few different bus stops, and he got on and he had long, straight blonde hair like Seb. And honestly, they all just lost it. It was just deafening. And when we were there, like in the arena, I'd never seen anything quite like it before. They was just phenomenal. I can't remember which. I was chatting to my friend because we've got really hazy memories of. Like we didn't buy the tickets. It was my friend's sister was desperate to go, and she wouldn't go on her own. Yeah, and we were like, well, okay, we'll come with you. I think it was Motley Crue they were playing with, but there's some we can't. I don't think at that age I would have gone to see Bon Jovi.
No,
and I don't remember seeing Motley Crue on that. I don't remember seeing Motley Crue on that tour, but my friend tells me we totally went. We would have only been like 15,
right?
16,
yeah, of course,
so,
yeah.
But anyway, it was just this bonkers time for them, I think.
Yeah.
And the growth was huge, doing really, really big tours. Interestingly, and we'll come on to this in a bit, that's what broke the band completely. So Seb was obviously a bit of a wild one. They had done big tours with Bon Jovi, and Motley Crue, and Guns N' Roses.
Ah, right, yeah.
So it's fascinating, it really is. So they did on that first album, this album we're talking about, the Skid Row album, the debut. They toured with Bon Jovi and Aerosmith, and then Slave to the Grind, which is a bit darker. That came after this. They went on tour with Guns N' Roses. But what happened was they did an album after that called Subhuman Race, and then the grunge scene. So Nirvana destroyed them.
Right. Okay.
So
of course.
Kids all wanted Soundgarden, or do you know what I mean? It was all that kind of stuff they wanted. So then the album sales reduced, and then the bands all started fighting. Now, Kiss had released an album and were out on tour, and they had offered Skid Row support slot, which Seb really wanted to do. Thought it was going to be great. Now, if you imagine at that point in time being offered the Kiss support slot, you'd grab it, right?
Yeah.
But they were like, no, we're too big.
Wow.
We're not doing it. And then Seb and Rachel fell out. And then Seb, being the well-balanced human that he is, left a torrent of abuse on his answer phone message. Oh, God. And then that was it. Then they decided to...
that was it. Game over.
Not have Seb in the band anymore. And then it went really weird. So Seb went off and did his own separate stuff.
Yes.
Skid Row went through like 18 different singers every week. And it was just bonkers. Just didn't work. It really didn't. Some of the odd things that happened after that, some of the singers that came into Skid Row, just pointless. Just really didn't work.
Yes.
Seb went, because if you think at the similar time, Guns N' Roses,
of course,
split up. So and Seb knew all the boys in Guns N' Roses. They'd been out on tour. They knew them really well, and so they did. They went to a rehearsal space, and Seb sang a bunch of stuff off Appetite.
Yeah, wow.
With Slash, and they said it sounded like Skid Roses in Slash's biography. They just said it just didn't
work.
No, it just didn't work. Seb's voice was just not. It's interesting because you think about it, that kind of high.
You think it would work, wouldn't it? I mean, it would probably work for the early Bon Jovi, and that's where there's this huge crossover, isn't there? Because like when I've listened to this album. My frame of reference from that era is sort of Fahrenheit or even Slippery When Wet and that kind of stuff. And, it is very similar sounding music, the kind of guitar sounds they use and the style of shredding and even the vocal timbre and stuff. But it definitely wasn't that Guns N' Roses thing.
No.
Guns N' Roses was way punkier, way spikier.
They were dirty sounding,
like proper rock and roll,
So we'll come on to the sound a little bit because I think the sound is really interesting. Produced by Michael Wagner. Now, Michael Wagner, he produced like all the records in this space. So, in 1984, he did Tooth and Nail by Dokken. In 1986, he did Master of Puppets from Metallica. 1989, he did this album, Skid Row. 1991, No More Tears from Ozzy Osbourne. 1987, White Lion. The album Pride, and then in 1990, again another one that's on my list to do here is Extreme 2 Pornography.
Really?
Loads of stuff. I mean, he's renowned for his like meticulous attention to detail and producing polished, dynamic, mixes and things. And I think,
but with a load of life in it.
Yeah,
I think it's got a load of life in it.
It's fascinating because if you look at most of what he was doing, it was big hair metal bands. It was kind of that kind of bombastic, big, squealy, proper lead guitar led. Shreddy kind of stuff, right? In Dokken's case, but then he did Metallica's Master of Puppets, which I just think's absolutely fascinating. But if you look at most of these records, they're very like Extreme was Nuno with very guitar led, lots of squealy squeals. Ozzy Osbourne, No More Tears. Again, super guitar driven. Squealy, all of that stuff.
Would that have been the Randy Rhoads era?
I think so. Yeah. But then Skid Row again. You've got Dave the Snake. I mean, this album is so squealy.
Yeah.
In fact, we're going to have to play some squealy squeals just to demonstrate it. But they're everywhere, like every track, and not just in the solos. There's like quiet, calm pieces in ballads where it's like. I think
you were allowed though.
Yeah,
you were allowed to do that. That was part of the thing.
I think there is definitely an era.
Yeah,
there's definitely it definitely is a dated sound, but it's just I just love it. I love this. I love the fact that Seb, and we've got something from the charismatic voice where she talks about his voice, and we'll do something from there in a second. Play a clip from her, but I love the playfulness of the whole album.
Yeah.
Like everybody is. Nobody's going, oh, less is more here. Right? Nobody's going, oh, do you know what? I'm not going to squeal. I'm not going to do the high voice. I'm not going to do the whole. It's just like, wow. Just,
everything's in.
Everything's in all the time.
Yeah.
And there's even the ballads. Yeah. You can feel it even through the ballads. I
have to say, I think the guitar. We'll do some clips, shall we? But I definitely want to include the guitar work on the last track. Because it's stunning. It's so
brilliant.
Good.
Right, let's do a few squealy clips. Yeah. Because I have to say, this album for me is one of. It's hard to defend it as being like the pinnacle of like rock songwriting or playing, or it is because there are better records out there, but. I just think the energy behind it and the playfulness and the way it makes me feel that kind of bombastic happiness as they go through it.
Yeah.
I just think it's stunning. So anyway, let's play some clips. That was Can't Stand the Heartache, third track on the album.
Dive bombs.
It's just the squeals. It's just the...
The world needs more dive bombs.
If I was a lead guitarist, that would be me on all the time.
Your guitar's got a Floyd Rose on it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I'll teach you how to do that.
Oh, it doesn't get any better than that. Let's go for the next track.
Yeah.
18 in Life. It doesn't get much better than that. That was the anthem.
Triplets.
Well, yeah. It's when that track, when I first heard it, it was one that I stopped and played it again and again and then again. And, do you know what I mean? And it was just that.
It's a hook, isn't it?
Oh, good God. And his voice is through the solo. The voice kind of comes in and then comes back in again.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal. And then the video was great as well at the time. And also... the song, I mean, it's about a young kid who kills another young kid
Ricky.
and then gets Ricky. Ricky. Have you ever written a song about someone called Ricky?
No, and this made me sad. As soon as I listened to it, I went, I'm incomplete.
Do you know
I've never written a song about someone
Riding
called Ricky.
the Low fans are going to return back to this podcast in like 2 years' time when you release a song about someone called Ricky. Anyway, next track, we are going to play something off Midnight, which is super duper.
Finger tapping. The world needs more dive bombs, triplets, and finger tapping.
It's good, isn't it?
I think if guitarists were brave enough to do that again, I think the world would be a better place.
The world was a better place then. I think just more. It was less constrained.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. You know what I mean? You could totally do all of that stuff. And no one really cared.
Everyone celebrated it.
Yeah, it's good now.
Oh, look at him with his frets, doing his fast fingers,
with his pink.
That's what he'd be now. Be cynical
with his pink Kramer guitar with a humbucker and 2 single coils and a single cutaway Les Paul Jr. And he played a 1971 Les Paul Custom with a Floyd Rose tremolo.
Yes, I think all of those things need to come back.
For acoustics, he played an Ovation 6 and 12 string.
Not sure.
Oh.
Not sure about Ovations.
Does that upset you?
No, because, Sambora used them. They were those ones that they were bowl-backed.
Yeah, I remember.
The little holes in them, the holes were in the wrong place for acoustic. They were at the top.
Right.
Whereas acoustic holes should be in the middle of the strings.
You can't criticise Sambora, can you?
No, that's the problem, you see. If I criticise Ovation, I'm criticising Sambora.
Well, they were the same. So Dave it might have been Sambora's Ovation.
Maybe.
Yeah. They knew each other a lot. I was just looking at other stuff here in the production because that was super squealy, and I think sounded that for me. Those 3 clips sums up the mid to late 80s.
Yeah,
like where we were with hard rock is really, but it was hair metal. The way that's the weird genre. I mean, that's the weird genre it came under. But I think Skid Row they had big hair, and lots of squealy squeals, but they were a little bit harder than the Cinderellas, and do you know what I mean? They were a little bit more metally, I think. But it's just really interesting that I was just looking at the amplifiers and stuff. So all Marshalls, like you'd expect. It's in Scotty Hill uses an ADA MP1 preamp, a McIntosh power amp. The Marshalls were actually Wagner's, the producers, Michael Wagner's Marshalls. Roland JC120 jazz chorus for the cleaner tones. In there, specifically in 18 in Life. Dave Sabo, modified Marshall for low ends, a Groove Tubes power amp, and an Ibanez Tube Screamer. And an MXR 6-band EQ.
See, a lot of these things, not so much the amps, but certainly the pedals. That Tube Screamer is like a pretty much of a staple pedal. It's kind of a one that you'd have on a chain.
It's like the all of the death. We're going to get into the death bands and stuff at some point. There's no way we're not going to. But it's that pedal, the Boss. But they all use it. Entombed. All of those bands just basically got it, wound everything up, and then stuck it in the chain, and that became the sound. But it's fascinating because there's nothing particularly special in there. But there's some bits I think you will find fascinating, my friend. The drum sound. The drums were not recorded in the studio.
Wow.
So they played. So the album was recorded at Royal Recorder Studio in Lake Geneva in Wisconsin. And it was next to a convention center that used to host car auctions.
Right.
And that's where they took the drum kit. They weren't getting enough reverb, and so they didn't like the sound of the drum kit in the studios. They took it into the car auctions and recorded it in there.
That's brilliant. I thought you were going to say that they took like one drum to each part of the world.
Yeah.
And then kick drum in Japan, snare drum in China.
That's kind of, that would be a bit bonkers, wouldn't it? But yeah, I just thought it was fascinating. That was the sound that Michael Wagner gets from the band. It's very, very standardized though. If you listen to Dokken, you listen
it's all that same thing.
It is. It's
they went for that sound.
Yeah, it's big. It kind of hits you. And if you think about it, it was
car auction drums.
But if you think about what preceded it, that kind of 70s clean rock, Foreigner and Boston, and this is just kind of big and bombastic, and I don't care.
It's make everything big, isn't it? That's the the kind of the vision, the mission, whatever you want to call it.
It's kind of like
just make it as big as you can make it.
It's like the anti-dad thing, right? I was reading today that kids hate the music their parents like because that makes them so. It was a bit like this for me. This is directly. It's directly in response to Pink Floyd and to Boston and to Foreigner and do you know what I mean? To these kind of massive rock bands of the 70s, you know, and like Uriah Heep, I suppose, to some degree. And you know what I mean? All of these massive rock bands, these guys were like, yeah, okay, but this is a going to 11.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I kind of quite like that. I like the fact that the drums recorded in a conference centre, but they sound good.
Yeah.
Lars Ulrich would have either like that, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he'd have been all right with that, I think. Yeah.
Put my drums into the car auction and let's go from there. I think we should probably talk about Seb's voice.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we've got a lovely clip from the Charismatic Voice, who it's a YouTube channel that I really like, and she analyzes vocalists, big vocalists, and she's covered all of my favorites. She covered Corey Taylor and Slipknot and Stone Sour. She's covered everyone. I'm going to go through and name names, but she's covered tons and tons and tons of them. And I never knew she did this, but she did it a month ago.
Oh, really?
I missed it. Yeah, it's quite new. And she covers a Skid Row track called I Remember You. And it's really interesting as she talks about how much fun he's having on the tracks, about how, vocalists, like trained vocalists, you kind of taught a little bit to kind of, you calm things a little bit and to play with the song itself. And she said you can kind of hear that he's having fun with his own voice. He's kind of this like amazing ability that he's got, this kind of range that he's got, and just this ability to kind of play with the songs. She said, it's almost like you can hear how much he loves the songs, and then he's kind of playing that. But she also, there's a bit we're going to play a clip from her where she talks about the like nasality of the sound, and she talks about like kind of that being thought of as being a really bad thing, but then here it's. It's kind of, it kind of works. And she talks about, how they get it with the soft palette changes and stuff. But we'll play that a little bit, and then I'd love to get your take on it, because you as a vocalist and everything.
I don't know what I'm doing, though. But absolutely.
Got so many fascinating interjections there from, I think electric guitar was the one that was like doing a little talkative thing back and forth at one point. That was cool. Overall, his tone quality actually has a lot of nasality in it. Gives it cut, can give it some clarity too. But a lot of people will veer away from nasality and say, oh, no, that's bad. I don't want to sound nasal, as if it's something that's just... I think this is a very subjective thing, honestly. I think people can have an extremely nasal voice and be extremely successful in music. I don't know why there's a sort of idea that nasality is bad in general when there's so many successful artists that have it in their sound. It actually sounds like a similar balance of soft palate drop. When your soft palate is down, your sound can exit more through your nose. And if it's just partially down, we get this combination, right, of exiting through the nose or exiting through the mouth. And that percentage will be part of what determines nasality in the sound. So Klaus from the Scorpions has, I think, a similar mix in his sound of nasality, where it actually goes quite nasal at times, yet many people consider it very, very beautiful, and definitely has a wonderful clarity too. So just food for thought. Like how much nasality is good in a sound? What do you think?
What do you think?
I don't know. Because I don't understand singing. I do singing.
You do loads of singing.
But I don't really understand it. I don't understand all those words she used, like soft palate and all that.
I love the fact that you teach music as well.
I don't know anything.
I love the idea of the kids going, sir, and you go, I don't know.
Just do it. Just do
sing.
it.
Yeah,
then
just
do
sing.
it again. And if you keep doing it, it gets better.
Less nasal.
Yeah.
This is your nose.
I think because I like the nasal sound.
You were saying that Billy Corgan's
it's very much
nasal.
so. In a lot of the early stuff in particular.
Yeah, she talks about Klaus from the Scorpions. Yeah, which is pretty awesome. I love the Scorpions.
Yeah. The thing is with Seb Bach is what you notice when you listen is he goes more sort of like throaty, chesty stuff in the big stuff.
Yeah,
and then when he goes to the quiet stuff, that's when he goes into the nasal stuff.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah. That kind of. It's a really fascinating voice. I think.
Yes,
It's got but I think it's got a unique voice. It's not like some people's voice. Some singers' voices sound. I wouldn't say similar, but rock voices. That you can kind of. There's a similarity there between this guy and that guy and the other guy. I think Seb's is just like so unique, and the way he does it as well. That like you say, that nasality, and then the lower stuff as well. It's weird. It's a very.
I wonder if she's ever done Bryan Adams.
Probably,
because he's probably got like the most perfect male rock voice. I would say.
I'd be shocked if she's done. She does one like every couple of weeks. She's a bit like Rick Beato.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? She throws mad, but she's lovely. She's brilliant, and she is.
She obviously knows her stuff. She knows what all those words mean.
She knows what soft palate means. What were you talking about last time? Semitones.
Oh, I know what that is.
You know, you throw all this. I'll just do this now in a different semi. I'm like, yeah, all right, do that. Do another semi. But I think his voice is really characterful, is how I describe it. So you don't.
He's got loads of beans.
You don't need to know who is singing to know it's Seb Bachs singing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just know. The live stuff where Eric Gronwall was doing the last couple of tours with Skid Row. He's got a phenomenal voice. Super powerful. And I think I wrote in one of the reviews, like if you kind of close your eyes and kind of cover your ears a little bit, it's kind of almost sounds. But it isn't. It's not. It was weird because that's kind of how it made me feel at Rock City. But listening back to the recorded albums, it just isn't.
It's not the same.
There's a different character completely to Seb's voice. And he was a different frontman. They're very, very radically different. But
so are they still falling out and stuff? Are they still?
There's rumours because Eric Gronwall, he was diagnosed with leukemia.
Oh gosh!
Went through all the treatment. He's good. He's recovering.
Yeah, I think I remember. He had to stop, didn't he? Of course.
Yeah. So he just stood down and just said, "Look, I can't." You see, Skid Row essentially don't get paid from albums, but bands don't. I mean, you know this at the minute. It doesn't. No one gets paid from Spotify.
No.
So no one buys CDs. No one buys vinyl anymore. So or outside your 10 mates. Right?
Yeah.
So you get paid from tours. You get paid from live gigs where you that's where the money comes from. So Skid Row are essentially a touring band. They released an album, The Gang's All Here. It was great with Eric. Really great album, actually. But that's never going to, they're not going to sell 5 million copies of that.
No.
So they're a touring band. And he was just like, look, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely exhausted. I cannot cope with this. I need to step down. So he's then stood down. Now, there's another bit. I'm going to come on to. I'm going to come back to Eric in a second. But Sebastian Bach has just released a solo album as well. Yeah, which is excellent as well. It's a really hard.
Has he still got his voice? Is good.
Yeah. It's pretty good. Yeah, I mean he's. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the same as it was when he was, offending gay people.
Yeah,
but it's, he's good. He's, probably a little bit less offensive.
Yeah.
Voice isn't quite as good as it was back then, but it's still pretty good. He's still got a good throat on him. He is trying to get back together, so he really wants to.
Oh wow, right.
And Rachel and Dave don't want to.
No,
they're like, we haven't forgotten, how much of a.
We haven't forgotten that voicemail.
Yeah, we haven't forgotten the voicemail or the prison or offending all of our friends. You know what I mean? All of this stuff. Because he's in a live interview abusing John Bon Jovi.
Right. Wow.
I don't remember what he called him, but it was he wasn't, you know what I mean? He was pretty abusive. And I think not enough water has passed under the bridge yet. Or as somebody, there was a writer that I saw said, they're not poor enough yet.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right. So they're making enough money to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And this is just like Oasis for me, right? So there's the Oasis reunion tour happens when they can't afford to buy, mansions.
Yeah.
But I would love to see it. That's a tour that I would go back to see again because the band, I think musically, the band are better than they were when I saw them in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think. Well, they just are. They're just excellent live. They really are. Anthrax are like that too. Anthrax are better now than they were back then. but they need Seb on vocals.
Yeah,
they just absolutely need that to happen. So yeah, so I would absolutely love that. But here's the bit that I'm going to come back to Eric Gronwall on. He did. So the way he got into Skid Row was he did a cover. I want to say it's 18 and Life,
right,
on his YouTube channel. Just him in a black room singing, wailing it out, right? And it sounded phenomenal. The band had fallen out with like the 18th vocalist they've had in the last few years, because they get through a lot of vocalists.
Yeah.
And the band saw that and then said, come and try out. So he came and tried out and then became the vocalist of Skid Row. He did. So Eric did a video last week of, is it Numb from Hybrid Theory?
Oh, really?
And it sounds just phenomenal.
So do you think he's going to do that?
Well, there's all these rumours that Linkin Park are saying, do you know what, we're going to
give it a go with him.
We're going to do a thing. Are we going to spin the band back? Are we going to do a thing? Obviously, Chester's not here.
Yeah.
We're going to do something else with vocals. Don't know what.
Wow, that's interesting.
And he honestly, Eric's voice is excellent. It was excellent with Skid Row, and I think it will be excellent with Linkin Park as well.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows if he's now fit enough and recovered enough? You know, he's had all these vitamins and he's feeling, ready to go and do it. I called it. I said that he was going to be the vocalist for Skid Row when I saw that video, and I don't know.
Yeah. And you did that supergroup. You did that one as well. You called that as well.
Every Time I Die. Yeah. So you heard it here first.
Yeah,
it's good. But I think that probably brings us to end.
I think we've done a good job. You've done a good job. I've just sat and gone, yeah.
Nasal. I love this though. Do you know what? Do you not love this? I love this thing. I love this format. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And people are listening.
Best format ever.
And people are listening. Which is nice because we were a bit scared that people wouldn't listen.
Yeah.
Whenever you change anything, there's always that.
We like the thing you did before.
Yeah, or just like, well, we don't care.
Yeah.
Don't know. But it's great. People are listening, and that's great. So that's you.
Yeah,
that you are listening, and we love you for listening.
Thank you.
We have got an ask of you, and that is, could you please share us?
Yeah, because, that's the one. That's the way it works.
Desperately want people to find us, and it's so hard on social media and all of the things. So, if you like this episode, which obviously because you've got here, if you've got here, you loved it. Yeah. You did. You loved it. And
we'll see you on the percentage who stuck around till the very end.
We will. I was going to do a thing. I looked at the stats of our show, and there were a couple of really interesting things. One person listens to this show on iTunes.
Right.
I don't know who you are, but thank you. And the other thing is that we've been desperately trying to submit the show to TuneIn, so you can play it on Alexa. And it keeps telling me that I can't do that because they're not accepting new shows. But one of you has managed to play the show on Alexa because the stats tell us. So if that's you, thank you. Okay. And can you tell us how you did it?
Yeah.
So shall we? I don't know what we're going to pick this your week next week. I don't know what you're going to pick.
Oh, I'll decide 2 days before.
I'm going to keep saying OK Computer.
I think it's got to be on it, but I don't know. Are we experienced enough in this yet to do OK Computer? That's my worry. I think I've got it on such a pedestal. OK Computer.
What about a Pumpkin song? What a Pumpkin album?
We did Melancholy before, didn't we? When we did the walkthrough.
Oh, we did. Yeah,
that was on the Spotify format.
Got to pick something else. Then.
Yeah.
Oh, New Jersey.
Might be. That's a nice leap from this, isn't it? Maybe that's good because that's.
There's a bit.
Yeah, that's kind of connected to this one. Maybe we'll go there next
Richie
week.
Sambora. So say Richie Sambora as if you're from Yorkshire.
Richie Sambora. I can't do it now.
Can you do it?
Put me on the spot.
He used to break
into
Bon
Jovi. Richie Sambora.
In our old show, Chris used just to break into Yorkshire like for no reason. It'd just be like Bon Jovi.
John Bovey. Have you seen that tattoo? No. Oh,
I love Bad Tattoos. Bad Tattoos is a Facebook group I love to pieces.
It's Is My Life, spelled totally wrong, and then John Bovey.
I've got this. Before we go, I've got a new favourite Facebook group. It's called "Look at Me in My Stupid Red Trousers," and it's just people wearing red trousers. I just love it. There's just something totally not okay about it. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of not offensive. They're not being abusive to people. It's just like, I saw these red trousers today in Southampton, and it's just a picture of a man in red trousers. And I just like the nonsensicalness of it. Anyway, shall we do one?
Let's do one.
Let's do one. See you next week.